Juan Pablo Aristizabal is 12. Jean-Pierre Perrin is 7th with 8 kilos. Juan Garcia from Colombia is P21 with 29 kilos on softs. Jean-Pierre Perrin is P7. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is P12. The qualification session is at Baréin International Circuit in Sakhir, Baréin. Esteban Gomez from Colombia is 4th with 74 kilos. Jose Miguel Moncada from Colombia is P15 with 8 kilos. Santiago Betoya from Colombia is P15 with 75 kilos. Carlos Huertas from Colombia is P3 with 77 kilos on softs. Christian Gomez from Colombia is 19th with 30 kilos. Christian Gomez is up 11.65 in T4. Christian Gomez is up 13.36 in T9. Christian Gomez is up 15.45 in T12. Christian Gomez is up 16.67 in T14. Christian Gomez is up 0.03 in T1. Carlos Huertas in T1 is P2 up 0.11. Esteban Gomez in T2 is 5th up 0.46. Christian Gomez in T4 is P1 up 0.15. 10 minutes remaining in the session. Esteban Gomez in T4 is 5th up 0.51. Christian Gomez in T8 is first up 0.12. Christian Gomez is up 0.11 in T11. Esteban Gomez is P6 up 1.08 with 74 kilos. Christian Gomez is first up 0.17. Christian Gomez is up 0.18 in T15. Christian Gomez improved his P1 with a 2:00.130. Esteban Gomez is P7. Esteban Gomez improved his P2 with a 2:00.940. 0.810 off pole. Yanli from China in T14 is P8 up 1.19 with 22 kilos. Yanli improved improved is P8 with a 201.788. 1.658 off pole. Camilo Gomez from Colombia in T13 is 16th up 0.62 with 75 kilos. Giovanna Gomez from Colombia is P14 with 20 kilos. Camilo Gomez is 14. Hans Castaneda from Colombia is 6th up 0.10 with 30 kilos. Sebastian Sepulveda from Colombia in T12 is 17th up 1.12 on mediums. Sebastian Sepulveda is up 10.36 in T14. Christian Gomez is provisional pole with a 2:00.021. Sebastian Sepulveda is up 0.23 in T1. Esteban Gomez is 4th. Esteban Gomez improved is 4th with a 2:00.767. 0.746 off pole. Ivan Trujillo is P13. Ivan Trujillo is up 1.46 in T15. Ivan Trujillo improved is 13th with a 2:03.388. 3.367 off pole. Diego Ortiz is P11. Diego Ortiz improved is P5 with a 2:00.862. 0.841 off pole. Jose Miguel Moncada is 12th. Jose Miguel Moncada improved is 12th with a 2:02.429. 2.408 off pole. Yehonaden Posada is P17. Yehonaden Posada is up 0.85 in T15. Yehonaden Posada improved is P16 with a 2:04.845. 4.824 off pole. Santiago Hernandez from Colombia in T14 is P18 up 3.07 with 16 kilos. Five minutes remaining in the session. Santiago Hernandez improved his P14 to 2:02.334. 2.313 off pole. Santiago Hernandez is up 0.04 in T1. Esteban Gomez is P4. Esteban Gomez is up 0.33 in T15. Esteban Gomez improved is second with a 2:00.427. 0.406 off pole. Diego Ortiz from Colombia in T14 is 6th up 0.34 with 74 kilos. Diego Ortiz improved is 3rd with a 2:00.534. 0.513 off pole. Santiago Bedoya in T14 is P11 up 0.65. Carlos Huertas in T12 is P7 up 0.47 driving Alexis. Carlos Huertas is up 0.48 in T14. Carlos Huertas improved his second with a 2:00.366. 0.345 off pole. Juan Carlos Guarin from Colombia in T14 is P19 up 1.51 on hards. Juan Carlos Guarin improved his 18th with a 2:03.877. 3.856 off pole. J.Enriquez from Colombia is 7th up 0.38 with 29 kilos. Is provisional pole with a 1:59.938. J.Enriquez is up 0.87 in T12. J.Enriquez is up 0.84 in T14. J.Enriquez improved his P2 with a 2:00.098. 0.160 off pole. Jonathan Posada from Colombia in T14 is P20 up 0.40. Jonathan Posada improved his 20th with a 2:04.671. 4.733 off pole. Juan Pablo Arango is 13th up 0.49 with 16 kilos. Juan Pablo Arango improved his 10.201.289. 1.351 off pole. Esteban Gomez is P4 up 0.11. Yanli is P13 up 0.76. Yanli improved his 8th with a 2:01.045. 1.107 off pole. Camilo Gomez is P16 up 0.19 driving a Renault. The qualifying session is now in overtime. Camilo Gomez is up 0.48 in T11. Jean-Pierre Ferrand from Colombia in T13 is P6 up 0.11 with 8 kilos. Juan Garcia from Colombia in T11 is 9th up 0.78 with 29 kilos. Juan Garcia is up 0.82 in T14. Juan Garcia improved his P5 with a 2:00.448. 0.510 off pole. Daniel Quintero from Colombia is P8 up 0.53 with 67 kilos. Daniel Quintero improved his P3 with a 2:00.199. 0.261 off pole. The race session is at Baréin International Circuit in Sakhir, Baréin. The wind speed is 1 km/h from the east-northeast. Christian Gomez is P1. J.Enriquez from Colombia is second with 29 kilos. Daniel Quintero from Colombia is P3 with 67 kilos. Carlos Huertas from Colombia is P4 with 77 kilos on softs. Esteban Gomez from Colombia is 5th with 74 kilos. Juan Garcia from Colombia is 6th with 29 kilos. Diego Ortiz from Colombia is P7 with 74 kilos. Jean-Pierre Ferrand from Colombia is P8 with 8 kilos. Yanli from China is 9th with 22 kilos. Juan Pablo Aristizabal from Colombia is P10 with 20 kilos. Juan Pablo Arango is P11 with 16 kilos. Hans Castaneda from Colombia is 12th with 30 kilos. Santiago Bedoya from Colombia is 13th with 75 kilos. Santiago Hernandez from Colombia is 14th with 16 kilos. Jose Miguel Moncada from Colombia is 15th with 8 kilos. Camilo Gomez from Colombia is 16th with 75 kilos. Ivan Trujillo from Colombia is P17 with 77 kilos on hards. Juan Carlos Guerin from Colombia is P18 on hards. Giovanna Gomez from Colombia is P19 with 20 kilos. Race start. Christian Gomez is P4. Daniel Quintero in T1 is P3. Hans Castaneda is 6th. Juan Pablo Arango is 7th. Juan Garcia is P7. Hans Castaneda is 8th. Juan Pablo Aristizabal in T11 is 9. Jean-Pierre Ferrand in T13 is P12. Jean-Pierre Ferrand is now 11th. Christian Gomez from Colombia is P12 with 30 kilos, 0.5 behind Jean-Pierre Ferrand. Carlos Huertas is 16, 0.2 behind Diego Ortiz. Carlos Huertas passed Diego Ortiz for 15. Ivan Trujillo J.Enriquez is P21. Pons Castaneda is 13. Pons Castaneda lost P14 to Carlos Huertas. Diego Ortiz from Colombia is P16, 0.2 behind Hans Castaneda. Jose Miguel Moncada in T5 is 17. Best lap is a 2:25.118. 15.928 off the fastest lap. Daniel Quintero is P3, 0.5 behind Esteban Gomez. Yanli in T11 is P4, 0.2 behind Daniel Quintero. Camilo Gomez in T11 is P12 battling Carlos Huertas. Ivan Trujillo exiting pits on hards. Daniel Quintero is third, 0.4 behind Esteban Gomez. Esteban Gomez is P3, 0.1 behind Daniel Quintero. Esteban Gomez is now first. Yanli is P3, 0.1 behind Daniel Quintero. Santiago T4 is 7. Best lap is a 2:02.864. 0.500 off the fastest lap. Gomez is P16, 0.3 ahead of Santiago. Juan Carlos Guerin in T6 is P18, 0.4 behind Santiago Hernandez. Juan Garcia in T11 is 5th, 0.4 behind Juan Pablo Arango. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is P7, 0.2 behind Santiago Bedoya. Diego Ortiz in T13 is 13th driving a BMW, 0.3 behind Camilo Gomez. Diego Ortiz passed Camilo Gomez for 12th. Ihonehu Posada from Colombia on lap 3 is 16th, 0.3 behind Giovanni Gomez. Juan Garcia. Yanli from China is P3, 0.4 behind Daniel Quintero. Carlos Huertas in T7 is P11. Best lap is a 2:01.137. Juan Garcia is 5th, 0.1 behind Juan Pablo Arango. 0.3 behind Jean-Pierre Ferrand. Hernandez is P18, 0.4 behind Juan Carlos Courin. Juan Carlos Courin in T11 is P18 battling Santiago Hernandez. Carlos Huertas is 11, 0.4 behind Jean-Pierre Ferrand. Yanli is third, 0.3 behind Daniel Quintero. Juan Pablo Arango is 5th, 0.4 behind Juan Garcia. Best lap is a 2:00.786. Carlos Huertas is 9th driving a Lexus, 0.3 behind J.Enriquez. Juan Pablo Aristizabal in T11 on lap 5 is P12, 1.0 behind Diego Ortiz. Camilo Gomez in T12 is 13, 0.5 behind Juan Pablo Aristizabal. Camilo Gomez is now 12. Juan Carlos Courin in T12 on lap 5 is P18, 0.2 behind Santiago Hernandez. Ivan Trujillo entering the pits is 20th. Yanli from China is 3rd, 0.2 behind Daniel Quintero. Juan Carlos Courin from Colombia is 18, 0.1 behind Santiago Hernandez. Santiago Hernandez was 2.4 faster last lap. Juan Carlos Courin passed Santiago Hernandez for P17. Yanli is 6th. Yanli lost 6th to Christian Gomez. Carlos Huertas is 8th. Santiago Bedoya in T12 is P5, 0.5 behind Juan Pablo Arango. Carlos Huertas in T13 is 8th, 0.5 behind Yanli. Yanli in T14 is 8th, 0.2 behind Carlos Huertas. Yanli passed Carlos Huertas for P7. Carlos Huertas is P8 driving a Lexus, 0.3 behind Yanli. Santiago Bedoya is P5 with 75 kilos, 0.2 behind Juan Pablo Arango. Carlos Huertas in T7 is 8th driving a Lexus, 0.5 behind Yanli. Santiago Bedoya is 5th, 0.3 behind Juan Pablo Arango. Passed Juan Pablo Arango for 4th. Jean-Pierre Ferrand on lap 7 is P9, 0.4 behind Carlos Huertas. Diego Ortiz in T12 on lap 7 is P11, 0.4 behind J.Enriquez. Diego Ortiz was 3.7 faster last lap. Christian Gomez is 6th, 0.4 behind Santiago Bedoya. Diego Ortiz is P11, 0.3 behind J.Enriquez. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is 15, 0.1 behind Jonathan Posada. Santiago Bedoya is P6, 0.2 behind Christian Gomez. Aristizabal in T2 is 15th driving a Chevrolet, 0.5 behind Jonathan Posada. Juan Pablo Aristizabal was 1.4 faster last lap. Juan Pablo Aristizabal passed Jonathan Posada for P14. Jonathan Posada is P15. Best lap is a 2:05.045. 4.259 off the fastest lap. Santiago Bedoya is P6 driving a Renault, 0.5 behind Christian Gomez. Juan Carlos Guerin in T10 on lap 8 is P16, 0.1 behind Jonathan Posada. Juan Carlos Guerin was 0.9 faster last lap. Juan Garcia is 5th. Juan Garcia entering the pits is 6th. Christian Gomez in T1 is P4, 1.1 ahead of Santiago Bedoya. Yanli is 12th, 0.1 ahead of Camilo Gomez. Santiago Hernandez in T14 is P16 with 16 kilos, 1.3 ahead of Juan Carlos Guerin. Juan Garcia exiting pits on mediums. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is P13. Best lap is a 2:02.619. 1.833 off the fastest lap. Juan Pablo Aristizabal passed Juan Garcia for 12. Yanli exiting pits. Santiago Hernandez is 16th with 16 kilos, 0.1 behind Juan Carlos Guerin. Santiago Bedoya in T12 is 5th, 0.5 behind Christian Gomez. Daniel Quintero is P2, 3.6 behind Esteban Gomez. Daniel Quintero entering the pits is 2nd. Juan Garcia in T11 is 13th on mediums, 2.7 behind Juan Pablo Aristizabal. Juan Pablo Aristizabal was 1.8 faster last lap. J.Enriquez from Colombia is P9. J.Enriquez entering the pits is 9th. Daniel Quintero on lap 10 is P9. Daniel Quintero exiting pits. Daniel Quintero is now P10. Camilo Gomez is 10, 0.3 behind Daniel Quintero. Camilo Gomez passed Daniel Quintero for P9. Santiago Hernandez at T1 is P15. Best lap is a 2:03.5, 2.764 off the fastest lap. J.Enriquez exiting pits on hards. Christian Gomez from Colombia in T11 is P3, 0.3 behind Juan Pablo Arango. Sebastian Sepulveda entering the pits is P19. Juan Pablo Arango is 3rd driving a Ford, 0.2 ahead of Santiago Bedoya. Santiago Bedoya in T14 is P3, 0.3 ahead of Juan Pablo Arango. Carlos Huertas is 5th, 0.8 ahead of Jean-Pierre Ferrand. Carlos Huertas entering the pits is 6th. Camilo Gomez is P9 with 75 kilos, 2.3 ahead of Daniel Quintero. Juan Pablo Arango is P4, 0.3 behind Santiago Bedoya. Carlos Huertas exiting pits. Juan Pablo Arango lost P5 to Diego Ortiz. Jonathan Posada is P15. Sebastian Sepulveda exiting pits on softs. Juan Carlos Ferrand from Colombia is 13. 2.4 behind Santiago Hernandez. Daniel Quintero on lap 11 is 9th. 0.9 behind Camilo Gomez. Camilo Gomez was 40.8 faster last lap. Camilo Gomez is P9. Best lap is a 2:03.572. 2.786 off the fastest lap. is P5 driving a BMW, 1.0 behind Jean-Pierre Ferrand. Carlos Huertas entering the pits is 14. Carlos Huertas is 14. Diego Ortiz is 5th, 0.4 behind Jean-Pierre Ferrand. Carlos Huertas exiting pits. Jean-Pierre Ferrand in T13 is 4th, 0.5 ahead of Diego Ortiz. Jean-Pierre Ferrand lost 4th to Diego Ortiz. Jonathan Posada exiting pits. Carlos Huertas in T8 is P16, 0.4 behind Giovanni Gomez. Jean-Pierre Ferrand entering the pits is 6th. Jean-Pierre Ferrand is P6. Juan Carlos Guerin is 13th. Best lap is a 2:05.119. 4.333 off the fastest lap. Daniel Quintero entering the pits is 9th. Daniel Quintero is 11th, 0.5 behind Juan Garcia. Daniel Quintero exiting pits. Jean-Pierre Ferrand is 11th. Jean-Pierre Ferrand exiting pits on softs. Juan Carlos Guerin entering the pits is P13. Jean-Pierre Ferrand is now P12. Juan Carlos Guerin is P14, 0.4 behind J.Enriquez. Jose Miguel Moncada is 6th driving a Mercedes-Benz. J.Enriquez in T6 is 13th on hards. Daniel Quintero in T12 is P10, 2.5 ahead of Santiago Hernandez. Juan Carlos Guerin exiting pits on mediums. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is 8th driving a Chevrolet, 0.5 behind Camilo Gomez. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is now 7th. Camilo Gomez is 9th. Christian Gomez is 2nd driving a Honda, 3.6 ahead of Santiago Bedoya. Camilo Gomez is 14th on softs, 2.2 behind Carlos Huertas. Camilo Gomez exiting pits on softs. Esteban Gomez is first. Esteban Gomez entering the pits is P1. Christian Gomez on lap 14 is second. Christian Gomez entering the pits is second. Santiago Bedoya entering the pits is third. Carlos Huertas in T8 is 13th. Jonathan Posada entering the pits is 18th. Diego Ortiz entering the pits is 4th. Diego Ortiz is P5. Juan Carlos Guerin is P16 on mediums. Esteban Gomez exiting pits on softs. Jose Miguel Moncada entering the pits is P6. Christian Gomez exiting pits. Jose Miguel Moncada is P6. Santiago Bedoya exiting pits. Santiago Bedoya on lap 15 is 6th, 2.3 behind Juan Garcia. Santiago Hernandez entering the pits is 10th. Santiago Hernandez is P11 driving aboard, 1.0 behind Jean-Pierre Ferrand. Jean-Pierre Ferrand was 3.6 faster last lap. Diego Ortiz exiting pits on mediums. Daniel Quintero is 7th. Jose Miguel Moncada exiting pits. Carlos Huertas in T2 on lap 15 is P12, 0.4 behind Jose Miguel Moncada. Camilo Gomez entering the pits is 15th. Carlos Huertas passed Jose Miguel Moncada for 11th. Santiago Hernandez exiting pits on softs. Camilo Gomez is 15th. Diego Ortiz in T8 is P8, 1.2 ahead of Jean-Pierre Ferrand. Camilo Gomez on lap 15 is 15th. Camilo Gomez exiting pits. Jean-Pierre Ferrand is P9, 1.0 behind Diego Ortiz. Juan Pablo Aristizabal entering the pits is P6. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is 6th, 1.4 ahead of Daniel Quintero. Juan Carlos Guerin from Colombia in T4 is P16. Giovanni Gomez is P13 with 20 kilos. Juan Pablo Aristizabal exiting pits on softs. Giovanni Gomez entering the pits is P13. Esteban Gomez in T12 is P2 with 74 kilos on softs. Juan Pablo Arango is P1. Juan Pablo Arango entering the pits is P1. Giovanni Gomez exiting pits. Juan Carlos Guerin in T15 is 16. Juan Pablo Arango is P5, 2.7 behind Santiago Bedoya. Juan Pablo Arango exiting pits. Juan Pablo Arango lost pit to Daniel Quintero. Sebastian Sepulveda from Colombia in T8 is 17th on softs. Best lap is a 2:07.447. 6.982 off the fastest lap. Santiago Bedoya is P4. 0.3 behind Juan Garcia. Santiago Bedoya passed Juan Garcia for P3. Jose Miguel Moncada on lap 17 is 11th. Carlos Huertas is P10, 3.2 behind J.Enriquez. Jose Miguel Moncada is 11th. Juan Carlos Guerin is 16th. Best lap is a 2:05.084. 4.647 off the fastest lap. Juan Carlos Guerin passed Giovanni Gomez for P15. Giovanni Gomez in T11 on lap 17 is 16, 0.5 behind Juan Carlos Guerin. Juan Garcia is 4th. Best lap is a 2:01.221. 0.784 off the fastest lap. Juan Garcia lost 4th to Daniel Quintero. Sebastian Sepulveda is P17 driving a Porsche, 0.5 behind Giovanni Gomez. Juan Garcia entering the pits is 5th. Juan Garcia is 6th with 29 kilos, 3.0 behind Juan Pablo Arango. Diego Ortiz entering the pits is 8th. Juan Garcia exiting pits on mediums. Diego Ortiz is 9th. Jose Miguel Moncada is 11th. Jose Miguel Moncada passed Diego Ortiz for 10th. Diego Ortiz is 12. Best lap is a 2:01.281. 0.844 off the fastest lap. Diego Ortiz exiting pits. J.Enriquez is 7th, 1.3 ahead of Carlos Huertas. Is 12, 2.4 behind Diego Ortiz. Santiago Hernandez was 2.3 faster last lap. Camilo Gomez in T1 is P14. Camilo Gomez lost 14th to Juan Carlos Guerin. J.Enriquez is P7, 0.4 behind Juan Garcia. Huertas is P8, 0.8 behind J.Enriquez. J.Enriquez in T8 on lap 20 is 7th, 0.4 behind Juan Garcia. Carlos Huertas in T11 on lap 20 is 8th, 0.7 behind J.Enriquez. Carlos Huertas passed J.Enriquez for P7. J.Enriquez entering the pits is 8th. J.Enriquez exiting pits on hards. J.Enriquez lost P8 to Jose Miguel Moncada. Carlos Huertas in T4 is 7th, 0.1 behind Juan Garcia. Carlos Huertas passed Juan Garcia for 6th. Juan Garcia entering the pits is 10th. Daniel Quintero in T12 is P3. Best lap is a 2:00.437. Is 14, 1.4 behind Juan Carlos Guerin. Camilo Gomez passed Juan Carlos Guerin for P13. Juan Carlos Guerin is P14. 1.0 behind Camilo Gomez. Juan Carlos Guerin is now 13th. Camilo Gomez in T1 is 13th, 0.8 behind Juan Carlos Guerin. Juan Pablo Arango in T10 on lap 22 is 4th. Daniel Quintero on lap 22 is P3, 4.2 behind Santiago Bedoya. Daniel Quintero lost third to Juan Pablo Arango. Giovanni Gomez is 14th. Is 11th, driving a Ford. Juan Pablo Aristizabal in T14 is P9. Daniel Quintero is P4 driving a McLaren, 1.4 behind Juan Pablo Arango. Juan Pablo Arango was 10.6 faster last lap. The leader has just finished the race. Esteban Gomez finished P1. Santiago Bedoya finished second. Juan Pablo Arango finished third. Daniel Quintero finished P4. Sakhir Baréin finished 5th. Carlos Huertas finished 6th. Juan Carlos Guerin finished P12. Jose Miguel Moncada finished 7th. Sebastian Sepulveda finished P16. J.Enriquez finished 8th. Camilo Gomez finished P15. Juan Pablo Aristizabal finished P9.